All right, I'm the Flat Rate Master, and today we're going to talk about 5 dirty things shops do to their employees. Yeah, this is going to be a negative video. So we're going to talk about 5 things that shops do that, well, should be red flags if you're working in a shop that does that. Number 1, if you break a part or you damage a car in any way, shape, or form, and they expect you to pay for it. That's not how it works. That's how they're ripping you off, literally ripping you off. They're the business owner, they make the profit, they make the loss. Now they can fire you for damages. If you break too much stuff, they can fire you. Not a lawyer, but in I think every state in the union, you can't make an employee pay for broken parts or damages to vehicles in their care when you're covered under that company's insurance. If the company doesn't have insurance, well, that's a different problem. So what I'm saying is if the boss comes back at you and says, oh, because you broke that fitting off that hose, that's coming out of your paycheck. No, that is shady AF. Number 2, and this applies to flat raters and hourly technicians. This applies to hourly and flat rate technicians. So, just saying, paycheck every now and then gets a little shady, if you know what I mean. All of a sudden, you didn't bill as many hours, you didn't work as many hours. They do weird things with your payroll. You need to question that. Because they're messing with your pay. Chances are, if they're doing that kind of thing, probably not a quality shop to begin with, or they're having money troubles. If they all of a sudden can't pay your normal paycheck, then something's wrong, whether ethics or money-wise. But you notice your paycheck's light, you need to question it. You need to find out why. Because they're screwing you in some way. Flat rate, obviously, you need to, verify your hours, all hours billed. Now, I know some people in the comments will be, if a vehicle's done, I should get paid for it. And technically, yes, you did your job, you finished it. But I also understand from the business owner's perspective, reporting gets a little funny because it doesn't get reported on a report you pull, gets put on the next week. So I can understand, and I personally don't really care that much if a job didn't ship and it goes on next week. It's just money for next week. So I never really gave it much, It's like, okay, whatever, I'll get paid on it next week. But, for some people, that is a big deal. Money's money. We all want it. So that's not really shady, is not getting paid on something that didn't ship. That's just the reality of accounting. So just a little side note. Okay, let's talk parts returns. The boss tells you to take let's use an alternator as an example, because we had one the other day. There's 2 alternators. Car takes one or the other. Shop sells the cheap one because it's the cheap one, and it takes the expensive one. Our cost on that alternator I'm talking about was $100 difference. So they get the first cheap one in, realize it doesn't work, so then they reorder the expensive one, and then they return the expensive one with the cheap alternator in it because, well, money. Shady. That's just shady. Take the little bit of a loss, deal with it, order the right parts next time. Side note on that, when I do a estimate, in case you don't know, the technicians in this shop, yes, we're paid for it. We write up our own estimate. So we pick the parts we use. And whenever there's a doubt, I put the expensive one on the ticket because chances are that's the one it's going to need if there's a big price difference. If they're the same price, I just put whatever I think it is if I can't identify it. But, That's the thing, is if they're putting the wrong part in the new box and return it as new, shady. Or, in that same note, also had this the other day, Worldpac Returns, used Audi brake pads in a new Akebono box. That cost Craig some time. Yeah, seriously. Used Audi pads in a new box. Little side story. Several years ago now, we had and I don't even remember what the actual part was, but my writing is relatively distinctive. And so I had written on it, defective. It got sent back to us as a new part. I wrote on it again, defective, sent it back as a defective part. We got it a third time. No lie. Each time it was sent as a new part. It was like, what? Now, this story actually comes from a couple of my coworkers I used to work with many years ago. But payroll checks bouncing. They all talked about it at this certain shop, that they had to, when the payroll checks hit their hands, they all ran to the bank to see whose check was not going to make it through. Because they literally had just enough for payroll, and if anything happened, somebody's check did not go through. Side note, it wasn't because they didn't have the capital. They transferred it all to their personal accounts and took every penny of profit out of that business they could. So that company literally ran on pennies of profit left. They had the money. They just didn't want to, have any of it, not sitting in a bank or anything. So those are some shady stuff that shops do. Hopefully nobody's shop does that, but I'm sure I'll get some comments that that's what happens in their shop. So as always, thanks for watching. I am the Flat Rate Master.